It's been an exciting week or two with the announcement of the new iPads and updates to the accessories. Not to mention new updates to come to creative apps like Procreate Dreams, Adobe Fresco, and others that really take advantage of the updates that we're seeing with Apple Pencil Pro and the powerful chips in the new iPads. I am particularly excited to share my thoughts on the new M2 iPad Air. If you're familiar with me and my channel, you know that I've had my hands on all of the iPads since 2019 and have really put them to test with tutorials, my work, video and photo editing, creative projects, college work, coding, literally all kinds of projects and uses that I've shared on this channel. I've also covered a lot of things like size and color comparisons, sharing a buying guide almost every year for the current lineup of iPads, and diving into a number of different accessories that level up the iPad experience. Out of all the work I've done on iPad and knowing how other people tend to work and use iPad, I most often recommend the iPad Air. I find it to be one of the best value iPads because you're paying a bit more for more premium features over the base level of iPad, but you're still getting tons of power and performance without jumping straight into the Pro lineup. For the longest time, however, I felt kind of like a hypocrite because I can do pretty much all of my work on the iPad Airs with no problems, but I still used and preferred using my iPad Pro. And it really came down to having more storage space and the much larger screen size. I used the 11-inch iPad Pro throughout college for note-taking, but once we transitioned to more online and hybrid classes, I switched to the 12.9-inch size and have had so much trouble going back to a smaller screen. Unless I'm traveling, of course, because I love the iPad mini. Solely because of the accessories and the screen size, I was bought into the Pro lineup of iPad. Of course, it's nice having even more power and performance, but I'm barely scratching the surface with it. I can certainly do with less and not even notice a performance drop. Which is why having the new iPad Air now coming in a 13-inch size is so huge. It's probably my favorite change to this year's iPad Air. Now, if you're considering an 11-inch versus 13-inch, you don't have to also choose between Pro and Air, which I feel like makes the decision even easier. By choosing the 13-inch iPad Air, you'll have 30% more screen real estate, so you're seeing more of your work or your creative space and just more of the apps in general. Another big change to the iPad Air this year is that it has the M2 chip. So if you're keeping track, a new 13-inch size and an M2 chip, so this year's iPad Air is even more Pro-like. Now I can rattle off numbers about the M2 chip like up to 15% faster CPU, up to 25% faster graphics performance and all of that, but you know I'm not usually one to just regurgitate stuff that you can easily look up. I like to share how it feels actually using one of these devices over the previous generations. I'll be honest, I have a hard time noticing differences in performance in my workflows when it comes to video editing or photo editing on iPad, or working in Keynote, other creative apps like Adobe or SketchUp. And part of this is because I'm just so used to all of these devices already being incredibly fast and responsive. If there is a difference in noticeable performance, it's usually exporting. It takes a few milliseconds faster, or apps are more snappy to open, or live previews of changes that I make to photos, for instance, is faster. One thing I have done on the iPad Air that I haven't tried on my previous iPad models is AI photo editing in a number of different apps, but mostly Photoshop, and I find it to be surprisingly wicked fast. Another change we see with the iPad Air is the front-facing camera is now on the landscape edge. We saw this change made with the iPad 10th generation. It was one of my favorite features of that iPad, and now we have that change on the M2 iPad Air as well. It just makes more sense to me for video calls and other activities that require a front-facing camera. It is a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera and it has center stage. The iPad Airs still do not have Face ID, which is what I'm used to having on things like my iPhone and my iPad Pro. But after switching over to M2 iPad Air, I'm finding that I actually prefer Touch ID. I do a lot of writing and a lot of drawing on my iPad, and so it's nice to just unlock the iPad while it's laying flat without needing to move it in front of my face or tip my face over the desk. I do have the cellular model, which is great for working on the go in places that don't have free Wi-Fi. Not that I often even run into that issue anymore, but the iPad Air uses eSIM now to enable on-device activation of the cellular data plan. iPad Air now features double the starting storage as well with 128 gigs, and they have more storage options up to 1 terabytes. So again, similar to the Pros. If you want more storage, you don't necessarily need to buy into that lineup with this year's iPad Air. We of course have new colors in the M2 iPad Air. Starlight and Space Gray are familiar colors, but now we have a purple and a blue finish. These colors are extremely subtle, but it's nice seeing them paired with the new Smart Folio colors, denim, light purple, sage, and charcoal. If you get the color matched purple or denim case, it really helps bring out that color a bit. As someone who is a Smart Folio diehard after trying out a ton of different iPad cases, I absolutely love the new Smart Folio cases. More than just having these new colors, they're actually redesigned for a wider range of viewing angles for reading, watching movies, typing, making calls. It is a small change in the grand scheme of new things with iPad this year, but it is a nice quality of life improvement if you're like me and you prefer the Smart Folio cases from Apple specifically. Perhaps one of the most exciting to come to iPad Air is another accessory, and that's the Apple Pencil Pro. Despite Pro being in its name, it is actually compatible with more than just the M4 iPad Pros that were announced. It is also compatible with M2 iPad Air. I have a full video covering Apple Pencil Pro and all of the things you can do with it, like squeeze, barrel roll, and haptic feedback. So I'll have that linked in the description for you to dive further into. With the introduction of Apple Pencil Pro though, it is now a bit more confusing which Apple Pencil is compatible with which iPad. Only the Apple Pencil Pro is compatible with the newly announced iPads, but if you don't want to use the Pro, maybe you don't need the features it includes for the price that it is, which is $129 by the way, then you can use one other Apple Pencil on the M2 iPad Air, and that is the Apple Pencil USB-C. After using both, I'd highly recommend the Apple Pencil Pro. It's just so much more fun and so much more quick to use on the M2 iPad Air. But of course, if you're just doing simple note-taking, the USB-C Apple Pencil is the better option. Overall, I love the new M2 iPad Air paired with the Apple Pencil Pro and the Magic Keyboard. I've been reaching for it over my M2 iPad Pro. It just feels so fresh. I love the new case. The Apple Pencil Pro is so much fun to use in apps that I've been using for years, like Procreate, and it just feels really quick and snappy. And I love, love, love the very subtle purple finish compared to the silver on my Pro as a beloved purple color lover. And now that it is a 13-inch size, it really just feels like I'm still using my iPad Pro. If you're looking to upgrade from the previous iPad Air, however, I'm not so quick to recommend that upgrade unless you know for sure that you want the 13-inch size and to just have access to those new features with the Apple Pencil Pro, since that pencil is only compatible with M2 iPad Air and the M4 iPad Pros. If you're coming from an even older iPad Air, you're going to love the updates to the immersive and colorful liquid retina display, the premium accessories that you can now use with the iPad Air, and just the better performance overall. I can genuinely say that I haven't had as much fun on iPad in a while than I have with using the new M2 iPad Air for the last week or so since the launch of the iPad mini a couple years back. And it's also really exciting seeing app developers tap into the new features that we're getting with Apple Pencil Pro, because it's making these apps feel new and refreshed and giving me more ways to work in them. So those are my thoughts on the M2 iPad Air. I'd love to hear what you think about the changes to iPad Air and how it fits now in this new lineup of iPads that we have for this year. If you love this video, then you'll love my video where I unbox all of the colors and accessories available for the M2 iPad Airs, as well as my video recap of the Apple event where I share my first impressions and a hands-on experience of using the M2 iPad Air and the M4 iPad Pro after the announcement. Until then, I will see you in my next video. Bye!